your continued support of the organization. You're here for that reason. You are the most loyal fans here today, and we certainly appreciate that, having you here. I'm Kevin Burkhardt from SNY. I'm glad to be here tonight with this esteemed panel. It's not often we get the brain trust of the Mets front office here in the same room, so we'll have that. And what we'll get a chance to do is find out what they're all thinking. And you'll get a chance to ask questions in just a little bit. Alex Anthony, the voice of the Mets that you hear at Citi Field, he'll be roaming around with a microphone, so in just a few short moments we can raise your hand and Alex will get you and you can ask questions whatever you want for all four of these gentlemen. So let me introduce who's here on my panel. For those of you who don't know, sitting right to my left, it's the general manager of the Mets, Sandy Alderson, everybody.
Yay!
Right next to Sandy is the VP Assistant General Manager. It's here for John Ricco. Mets Special Assistant to the GM. These next two guys travel ridiculous amounts. Everyone here does, but especially these two guys. JP Ricciardi is here. And I know every time I tried to call this guy, he was on a plane somewhere. But he's here now, the VP of Player Development and Amateur Scouting for the Mets. Paul DePodesta is on. Let me just start with asking this, guys. I'll save the audience a question. There's a guy by the name of Jose Reyes. He wears number 7. I know it's on everyone's mind. Jose Reyes, it's the big topic, and he's out there. He's still out there, and the cautious approach has been displayed in the media, including by SNY. What is going on with Jose Reyes right now, Sandy? We'll start with you, and where is the team in regards with talks with Jose?
So thanks for the softball.
Why save it for the end? Just go right for it right now.
Two things before I answer the question. Number one, if I look distracted, it's because Pinman is sitting right in front of me. So I'm going to really have to concentrate. Secondly, if I start coughing, it's because I've had a cold for the last week, and it's not because I'm trying to avoid a question about Jose Reyes. Okay, so anyway, the situation with Jose, I think, is well known. Obviously, he's a free agent, has been for some time. We had an exclusive period of negotiation just after the World Series. Nobody ever signs with their former club during an exclusive period of negotiation. Almost never happens. Why? Because when players get to that point, they want to find out what's on the market. They're curious, like everybody else. So we never had any expectation that would happen. Since that time, there's been one reported offer to Jose, and I'm sure that an offer was made. Whether it was made at that level or not, who knows. I do think that the new collective bargaining agreement, which was not concluded until just last week, made many players and clubs hesitant to move ahead with free agent negotiations. So in a general sense, not only with Jose, but just generally with free agents, things have been going very slowly. It's an interesting market because not only is Jose in the market, but also Pujols, Fielder, a number of very good players. And so things have been moving very slowly. From our standpoint, we are watching the market. We're still very interested in retaining Jose. And so, during the last couple of weeks and during the next 2 or 3 weeks, there will be a number of new developments. The market, I think, for any individual player has not yet totally formed. We don't know who's going to be interested in any of those players. Realistically, as I said, we're interested in bringing Jose back, but I also have to tell you that there are limitations. There are limits to that interest. We have to think about the long-term success of the franchise. Now, when I say limits, I don't mean, well, gee, we can't afford to pay X amount of dollars next year because of this or that reason. It's really consistent with what I said a year ago, and that is that we have to balance short-term, long-term. We have to make sure that we have flexibility in how we acquire players and retain players, and all of that comes into play. But the bottom line right now is that we're still watching what happens. We're still very interested. People might ask, well, why haven't you made an offer? What's with that? Well, I would say two things. Number one, as I've already indicated, the market really isn't clear at this point. And so whatever we might do might simply be throwing darts at the wall. And the second thing is that, again, this is all somewhat strategic. And so we have to decide when is the appropriate time, if there's an appropriate time, in the context of everything else that's happening. The only thing I would tell you with reference to this is that I don't believe Pools or Fielder have gotten offers from their existing clubs either. So, you shouldn't read too much into what has happened already. But again, I want to underscore, that we do have interest in bringing Jose back, but there are I think, legitimate baseball reasons why that interest has to be carefully evaluated and to some extent circumscribed. So that's about as much as I can tell you without shedding a lot of light on what's going on.
The good news is you're only going to be asked that about 7,500 more times at the winter meetings next week. So that was really just kind of a little warm-up for you. That's very nice.
The other question I get all the time is, have you seen Moneyball?
Have you?
And the nice thing is that I haven't seen the movie, so I say that and the conversation moves on. I don't have the same luxury with Jose. It's not, it doesn't end quite that quickly. So
you brought up something interesting, and John, I wanted to get to you about the new CBA, and there's a lot to it. I'm not going to certainly get into all the details, but if you could just describe to the fans here, how does it affect business, or how does it affect the everyday doing? Sandy mentioned in terms of free agents. I know they changed the designations on free agents and how it affects draft picks and things like that. So what is the biggest way that it affects your everyday dealings, whether it's with free agents or the draft, things like that, John?
Well, because everything runs through the players and the collective bargaining agreement affects the rights that the players have, it really affects everything we do in terms of acquiring players, treating our own players. So it is something that I keep on my desk every day and refer to it constantly. So I guess the biggest thing is the fact that they got it done so quickly makes it a lot easier on all of us because now we know the rules heading into the winter meetings, heading into the off season. The toughest thing would have been if we didn't know the rules, and that's why I think part of the reason that Sandy alluded to, we haven't seen a lot of movement because clubs were waiting to know what the playing rules were before they jumped in and committed to anything. But it does affect every part of what we do, and clearly this basic agreement, the big change, comes in the area of amateur player acquisition, whether it be the draft or international signings. We just recently got the rules. We're going to be briefed on them further once we get to the winter meetings next week. And, overall, a lot of the stuff is going to be really more administrative. But when it comes to the player acquisition, it's going to be a whole new ball game, and we've already had several meetings to talk about different strategies for heading into the draft. It's really going to change the way we've acquired players, and I'm really confident in the group we have here to take full advantage of the new system.
Again, everyone, I want to tell you in the audience, if you have a question for any of these guys, get ready because we're going to go to you and Alex Anthony in just a few. So think of those questions right now. You bring up that group, John, and JP. This group has been together for about a year now, and moving the organization forward in a little different direction. How do you guys feel like you're doing, and what is the direction of the organization right now as you see it, and where have you come in that last year?
Well, I think something that's important is when you have a new group together, you want to build the infrastructure, and I think Sandy's done a really good job of putting together people that can help to build that infrastructure, which is going to enable us to go forward to be strong in scouting and player development. So it's been real enjoyable from a personal standpoint because I was with Sandy for 13 years in Oakland, and obviously with Paul for a lot of years in Oakland. So there's a lot of continuity there, and obviously getting to know John has been great. So I think it's a good group. I think the people that are also working together in scouting and player development, it's a really nice group that's forming, and I think there's going to be some exciting things done here.
When I think about the winter meetings, which start I guess technically Sunday night in Dallas, I think of a couple guys having maybe a scotch at the bar and playing fantasy baseball on a napkin and doing those types of things. You know, Paul, maybe you could start us off on this one. How does it work? I mean, what is the game plan when your whole group, you four and many people that are not seen, go down to Dallas and get there and get your meetings together and tell everybody about what the gist of the winter meetings is, what your general plan is, and just overall how it works.
You pretty much have it right. No, it may have been like that, once upon a time. Now, I think whenever we go into the winter meetings, it's actually weeks of preparation leading up to it. We discuss sort of all of our needs. Also try to evaluate the other 29 organizations, what they're thinking, what their needs are, what their depth is in different places. Try to figure out sort of how we can fill those needs. Oftentimes, free agents end up making the big news during the winter meetings, and then there's the little nod down at the end of it. But the reality is, some of the smaller deals, the ones that don't get as much attention, sometimes are the ones that have the biggest impact during the year. I mean, it's incredible how many times the team that supposedly wins at the winter meetings doesn't win from April to September. I think it's always important for us to keep in mind. As much as we get caught up in the activity and want to do things to improve the team, we still have to be aware that there's a lot more to be done than just can be done in those 3 or 4 days.
Well, how do you judge? And Sandy, you can take this one. When you come out of that, if you come out of it and make a move, or last year you made 2 signings, how do you judge what is successful? Or I guess really you can't until the baseball season is played. Is that accurate?
Yeah, no, I think that it's all in the context of what you were trying to do, and both in terms of closing a deal and maybe positioning yourself to do something later. If you think about the meeting that we had similar to this last year, there were probably 8 or 9 players on our team during the course of last season, and actually at the beginning of last season, who weren't on the team at this time last year, and probably weren't even contemplated by those of us up here. So it's not just what's accomplished at the winter meetings, it's also about positioning. The other thing to keep in mind is that, with 4 of us are not going. We have 28 people going to the winter meetings. This is like a big convention. Every minor league team in baseball is represented. Teams from Mexico come and are represented. It's a big industry convention. A lot of different things take place, not just trade conversations and Rule 5 drafts and so forth. So amongst all that activity, clubs are trying to do something. And I think what you have to keep in mind too, with regard to the winter meetings, is the timing of setting rosters, which happened on the 20th of November. Then you have the offering of arbitration to free agents.
Is that the 12th? Is that right?
Well, the offer to free agents took place on 23rd, and then they have until what is it, the first to accept. So that December 1st is the date. Then December 12th is the tender. So a lot of these calendar events that take place, and everything at the winter meetings is with that in mind. So sometimes things get slowed down because, for example, on the 12th, there may be 50 players, 30 to 50 players in baseball who are not tendered contracts. Suddenly you have 30 to 50 more free agents. In fact, that's how we got some of our new players last year. So there's a lot of things going on, but it is a sort of a circus. It's there are hundreds and hundreds of people at these events, and what we do is just a part of it.